All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for attending today's Santa Clara River Watershed Committee for October 28th. I am told that this is now the 91st meeting, which is huge accomplishment for all of us getting together and making sure that we are taking the best care possible for the watershed. And so really appreciate it. Lynn and Laura, thank you so much for your dedication for this group in so many ways and bringing us together. And just want to say thank you, and EJ as well. And Tony Emmerich is not here, but appreciate United's work too. As for welcomes, I have asked if you could put your name and who you are associated with in the chat box so that we can capture it well. Really appreciate that. We have quite a few people. Laura, so do you want us to go around the screen, or how would you like to prefer? I know we have a tight schedule, so I was like, let's just kind of.
Since more people are here, I'm hearing an echo. Is that anyone else hearing that? I speak. I think maybe since more people keep filtering in, I think we'll be here a while if we start going around the virtual room. So just putting in your name and affiliation in the chat, and we can get started, which we are starting right off with Eric here, who is our guest really today. So I appreciate you joining us, and if you want to maybe introduce yourself.
Of course, glad to be here for the 91st meeting, my first, of course. Kudos for any meeting that can last 91 times to all of you, so impressive. I am the Director of Strategy for the Healthcare Agency for the County of Ventura. I'm here to speak about kind of the work that's been going on in the Santa Clara River bottom and the encampment work. And that is an odd fit, some of you might think, and I know many of you don't know me, but I was kind of recruited by our CEO's office to project manage a pretty wide-ranging team of folks, and kind of keep an eye on the overall progress and success that's going on. So I'm here to give a brief overview of that, and we can answer questions as well. And I can just pause there to see if that's good, Laura, or am I just launch in, or we just, or we have anything else?
That's great. I think there's just a bit of context on why I invited, Eric here. Actually kind of went through a chain from starting with Watershed Protection District internally in our office, and led us to Eric, which is great. And this is kind of, I thought, just maybe something some people might be interested in hearing more about. We had in 2019, feels like longer ago now, the homelessness in our watersheds workshop with WCVC, which a number of you probably attended. As we know, just homeless encampments really touch on a number of watershed issues that we discuss, from wildfires or fires starting in the river bottom. The Arundo relates with that issue, water quality, obviously. And then, of course, there's absolutely the human aspect of it all, as us being all community members as well in Ventura County in our watershed. So it may seem a bit like an odd thing for us to be talking about and hearing about, but I just think it's important for us to be aware of what the county and what is going on and the issues with homeless encampments, because a lot of us don't directly work on those issues, but it affects a lot of the goals and the vision that we have for the Santa Clara River, even when it comes to safe access and recreation. So thank you, Eric, for being here.
Absolutely, and thank you for that summary. So I'll start in on just what some of the activities have been. So I think really this started up as a question of fire and life safety down in the river bottom. There's in the particular area that we've been working on, it's a county kind of watershed area, and there is a tremendous amount of kind of Arundo and Tamarisk down there. There were also a fairly large group of encampments of individuals experiencing homelessness that had built kind of villages, and some of that including kind of fencing, a ton of pollution and other things out and about. And this created kind of a situation that I think folks around the county agencies felt was coming to a head and was going to be a real problem, with winds picking up, with winter coming, with real fire danger and folks living down there. So there was a concerted effort put together to see how we could clean the area up. And I think Laura touched on kind of what some of that entailed, because of course there's a human aspect of folks who are down there, as well as all of the natural aspect of this stuff down there. So this involved a lot of input from sheriffs, Ventura County Sheriff's Office, as well as the Watershed folks. I know some folks are here, as well as fire. And they're working on it, right now. So in addition to that, we really wanted to make sure that we offered services to as many people as possible, tried to find locations for folks to move, temporarily, and then are working on kind of longer term solutions for those folks to get some housing. So that involved the Human Services Agency, the Healthcare Agency, which has a backpack medicine program and a whole person care program that largely reaches out to folks experiencing homelessness, as well. And then, support from, the Ventura PD, the Oxnard PD, so on and so forth. So this is a kind of a lot of folks were involved in making this work. And essentially what's happened is there's been a number of outreach events down there, first to let people know what was coming, to give them options, to offer them support. That's been really successful. And in the meantime, folks, with there's been kind of a staged cleanup. So I'll pull up some pictures in a second. I don't want to do that while I'm talking, because I'll get distracted and I'll stop making sense. But I'll pull up some pictures in a second. So essentially there were a bunch of abandoned encampments. That was kind of the first set of cleanup that the sheriff's folks supported, along with Public Works and Watershed, doing big cleanup work down there. I think there was something to the effect of 200 tons of debris that was removed from the area. So just a lot of stuff down there. In the meantime, folks were given a lot of options for support. There were, through various programs, I think we've moved about 44 people out of the river bottom. The goal is, of course, not to kind of just disperse them to other places, but to give them places to be. So there's some temporary work going on in motels, and then there's work going on to try to find places for them additionally to go, because that's not really a long-term solution. One of those is work to hopefully expand the capacity of where the Arch with Mercy House is at Knoll Drive in Ventura. So that hopefully will come along as well. Anyway, so there's folks who have been moved. They're getting case managed and worked very closely with by HCA teams and HSA teams, offering various services, connections to physical health, to mental health. They're bringing Narcan kits over to them to try to keep safety up there. We've had a couple of doctor visits out to the motel as well. So a couple, not everyone has stayed. There have been a couple who have left, but there have been some success stories as well, and it's really great to see that. I heard someone got a job yesterday at I think it's $17 an hour. So this is something that once folks have some availability to kind of be in a space, some of them can really turn things around. So that's been ongoing. And then in the meantime, now they've started up actually doing the work on the tamarisk and all of the other invasive species down there. There's a few scragglers left down there who are not wanting to engage. They may eventually, when they know they really have to leave the area for the whole rest of the cleanup, The folks who are working on the encampment cleanup have been going through, and as sites are abandoned, of course, folks are given an opportunity to store all their stuff if they need to, and then kind of bringing down those encampments. So, you know, that is ongoing. Lots of communication to make sure folks know what's going on down there. And now there's a pretty significant cleanup effort underway. So I'll pull up a few pics for folks and then we can get into some questions. So let me see if I can share. So the first thing I'll show you is just a little, can you folks see that?
Yeah.
Yes, if we could zoom in.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Okay. So just for reference, this is largely the area, and there's been paths that have been made for access, and then GIS tracking of the individual sites and as they go kind of from occupied to abandoned, and then cleaned up. And then let me run you through some more pictures. So say, let's see. Sandy Harrison was nice enough to share some pictures of the work going on with me yesterday. And let me show you some other stuff that we shared with our group, our task force group that's been meeting. So for instance, this is kind of what it looks like when the masticator is just starting in. I think that's the right name for it. There's been, you know, to kind of speak to how very overgrown and difficult it's been. I think they're losing teeth on the thing that need to be replaced because there's just metal and fencing and things that you can't even see until you start bringing it down, that are all embedded in this stuff. And then they also are kind of being cognizant to not remove the native species. So that, and then if you look at this in relation to the other map, this is a path that they've cleared all the way to this area to have access to be able to continue to do the work. Here we have a little before and after pic. So this is this, you know, kind of berm here before, and then after they've gone through, this is what it looks like. So, you know, pretty significant work there. And I'm going to let me share a few of those pictures that we got yesterday as well. So this is kind of a look at what, you know, some of the encampment would look like. And as it continues, the continued kind of cleanup work. So pretty, you know, pretty significant areas. And then, you know, kind of once it's cleaned up and the encampments are brought down and some of this junk is piled together, you can see all of that here. And then again, after it's all cleared up, what the area looks like. So I'll pause there, and that's the general kind of, you know, effort that's been at hand. It's been a big team effort from lots of folks, and I think the area is going to be kind of much better for it. And I see that Supervisor Long has asked, do we know how long that has been there? You mean the whole encampment? Like, you know, I think it's been off. I think it's just, it kind of has had an organic life of its own where people kind of come in, they come out, they build, they leave stuff. More people bring more stuff, and then they move into areas that other people have started up as well. So I couldn't say exactly, but I think it's been a number of years.
Thank you. And it's important for us to know we had that workshop with water quality and all of the debris that is in the watershed and how, you know, we do it every year and we just keep cleaning. But that location looked like there was a lot of buildup. And so I was just wondering how long that takes, because it's important for us to understand with encampments, how we, it's not good to have them settle there because more trash will be accumulating. So how do we work with our police, our cities? Because we have concern not just in this location, but all the way up the Santa Clara Watershed, because we
Yeah.
had it in Santa Paula. And then I did a flyover and I saw some tents right by A Street and Fillmore. And so how do we get the county's help? And we work with the private landowners, the public. It's not an easy answer, but I thought I would dive into that one.
Yeah. I think when it's not county land, it's probably a little harder, but I'm sure that there's ways to kind of work that out with folks. I think one of the keys is exactly like you said, to work with law enforcement and to work with folks who can do the cleanup, so that once people are leaving, hopefully on good terms and able to go somewhere, that things are kind of immediately cleaned up. Because what happens is people do resettle there, and then that kind of leads to an ongoing cycle of more and more stuff. So I think that with all the folks who have been involved, one of the really good things is that they've been keeping track of when someone from HSA or from HCA makes a successful contact, gets a successful placement with someone, they let sheriffs know, and it's not like it happens right away, but they have a list of what the recently abandoned sites are, and when it's appropriate for them to be down there, they can bring those down. So I think that kind of coordination, because if you don't, I think a lot of times someone else will kind of come back in and say, hey, this looks like a pretty well built out spot. This is where I might stay. So yeah.
So then with all of our groups that are on this website, on this Zoom right now, who would we contact to work with you in regards to this? I know my office is contacted quite a bit. You guys are very focused on this project, which I love, because we have to take care of homeless everywhere. But if all of us on this Zoom has an issue with homeless, who would we be talking to?
Oh, that's a good question. I hate to say at some point very soon, not me, because I am. This is a limited time engagement from myself to help on this focused project, and I am getting pulled into more and more. But there is also a healthcare agency to work on, of course. So, I think where it's been pretty informal so far, where folks have reached out to either Mike Pettit or Tara Caruth, folks who are obviously very involved, and they kind of filter that information down. I think that would still be appropriate. While you've got me for the next few weeks, you can reach out to me as well, of course.
Well, thank you. Is there any questions from any of our group members?
Do you have, I think that, I know Sandy Harrison is with Watershed Protection District in this meeting too, and had shared before with me, like the tonnage and the number of days the cleanup took, and the cost. I think that's something that'll be interesting if that's being tracked, the overall cost of these types of cleanups. And I saw in the comment that Robert O'Reilly, thank you, from Ramirez's office, mentioned that a prior cleanup effort had occurred in 2017, and I believe you mean in that same area. So it's accumulated since 2017, and what's the cost then of this type of effort? And that's just the cleanup costs. Obviously, there's just so many externalities and costs of people just living in the riverbed, costs to them both healthcare wise and the community, and the biological resources. So it's so hard to put an amount on that, but in terms of that's our ability for tracking that, because I think we all understand that having people living in these types of conditions is not good for them, obviously, and sometimes it's been estimated or said, it's obviously a lot cheaper to give them housing. So in whatever ways we can do that. And I've talked to Tara, and she said that who's with the continuum of care program, the county is looking at expanding. I mean, there's a housing crisis right now that affects everyone, where you all see that at all levels. So, and a homelessness crisis. So to what extent we can extend housing and available housing for individuals is the long-term solution. But in the meantime, we really appreciate the efforts, for addressing the aftermath of a cleanup of these encampments, especially when we can house after we've been able to house people.
No, absolutely. I mean, the cost is significant. That's for the cleanup. I don't have any numbers offhand for you, Laura, but it is significant, and we're still involved in it. The cleanup is ongoing. It's going to take some time. I think the encampment piece is going to be done fairly soon, but the Arundo removal it takes a little time to crunch through all of that stuff. I think you're absolutely right that kind of the limiting factor is the longer term housing at the end of the day, right? Like we can make these big efforts for folks and really make a dent in it. But it's hard to keep cycling when there's no longer term place for folks to stay. And I think that's really a focus for county folks right now, and working with cities and trying to figure that out. I know that we're talking about, are there land options to put up structures or tiny homes or things to that effect. And I think that's still in early stages, but we have to be open to figuring out new solutions. I think we also have to be really, we really have to strike right now while there is a good moment for potentially pulling down funding related to housing and in the aftermath of COVID. There's Project Home Key, which is coming up, which hopefully will help us provide, some additional longer-term supportive housing. And then some of the short-term housing that's going on is being supported by kind of grant-based money that probably wouldn't exist if not for COVID. But that's obviously not a long-term. That's obviously not a long-term solution either. So agree that longer-term housing is kind of the rub at the end of the day.
Laura. Supervisor Long, if I could just pop in. I thank you, Eric. This has been very helpful. Just to kind of put a little point on how long this has been going on. I remember in, I think, 2003 or 2004, working with the Santa Paula PD and County Social Services on one of our properties to get that cleaned up. And it just shows that this is just a recurring problem until, like you say, we get the overall housing and mental health problems addressed.
Thank you, EJ. And really, I think that's my point, is the fact that this is a continuing thing. And so I really appreciate the efforts. One thing also that we saw with the coastal cleanup is the fact that all the trash that's in the watershed, it goes down to the ocean. We get it in the dredging machine stuck there. It pops up in the beaches. It goes all the way down to Port Hueneme. So when people think that, oh, well, it's just a little encampment in Santa Clara Valley, it really does affect our whole community. And so working on that together is really important.
Yeah. And actually just the weekend after, I believe, this cleanup, this was in September, there was our coastal cleanup day in Ventura County, and there was 2 locations on the Santa Clara River.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually one was on Sespe, so we still count that, but there was one right adjacent, I think even had some overlapping area. So we had volunteers out there doing a cleanup. So, in the future, I know there's been some interest from the Santa Clara River Conservancy, who Sean Kelly wasn't able to make it today, but I talked to him prior to this meeting, and kind of the idea of expanding volunteer-based cleanups along the Santa Clara River too, as part of a education outreach, stewardship, more focus on the watershed. And so that might be something in the future. Obviously, it won't be in these types of conditions in these areas, but I think there was one more question or comment, and then
Nagels, yes, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, first of all, I really want to thank you. I remember going in years ago and working on GIS stuff and documenting some of the encampments And I'm really glad to see some of that plastic getting cleaned up. And thank you for being gentle with the people. I think that's very noble. I wanted to ask, can we please, because many of the parcels that the river is running through are in private ownership, can the county please acquire the 100-year floodplain so that they can do more recreation and better maintain it? I would really like to see a bike trail access all the way along the Santa Clara River, all the way up to the old San Francisco Dam failure area. And it's historically interesting. I think it's a great potential plus for our economy to have active transportation modes of recreation. And I look forward to working with the farmers to finding common ground in stimulating our economy, getting people to come in and enjoy connecting with the farms in ways that are economically beneficial to the farmers and our economy, at the same time that they have a very small carbon footprint. Accommodating people who want to be sleeping outside, I think is a continuing need. I know, having talked to some of the homeless people staying on the river, some of them really do not want to be anywhere near a hotel or other people. They just want a chance to be outside and do what they need to do. And they're peaceful. They aren't causing problems outside of their litter. And I'm just thinking that maybe if we create the niche, the county could benefit in various ways. And then if we have to have some kind of voucher system for some of the homeless people who need to use these campgrounds, fine. The county may also, of course, charge some fees for people who want to camp at these campgrounds. There's the siting issue as well to be worked out. There's obviously funding and maintenance for the bike trails, but there's also opportunities for utility corridors and other things that are worth a lot of money if this can be done and done well. So thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments. And if we do need to move forward, so if we can, you can always contact Eric for the next couple weeks. And then also Tara Caruth with our homeless group out of the CEO's office. You can also contact myself, my office, or Ramirez or Lavera's office too, depending on what district you're in, and we will try and help you as best we possibly can. So Eric, thank you. Thank you for your dedication. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your 91st meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is our Santa Clara River GSA updates. Does anybody have any?
Can we maybe start at the top of the watershed with Rick?
All right, Rick, go ahead.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. Let me give you an update from the Santa Clarita Valley GSA. We're moving forward with GSP development. We completed the 60-day public comment period, October 15th. We presented the draft GSP to the board last week. We're on the right track. We are going to go back to the board November 23rd to describe public comment in a little bit more detail and also provide a little bit more technical information about implementation and particular management actions. And then after that, we'll button it up, and we're proposing or planning for presenting it to the GSA board on January 3rd for adoption. So that's where we are. And if you haven't been to the GSA website, or if you want to get more information, you can go to the GSA website to keep in touch with that. So Laura, that's my quick update.
Thank you. I see we have Brian Bondi also here from the Mound Basin. And we also, moving down, the watershed.
Can we do the Fillmore Piru?
Yes.
I'm the chair of that one, and very proudly representing Piru's Basin and Fillmore's. Wanted to make sure everyone knows that we do have our draft GSPs for both of them. They're available for public review. Go to fpbgsa.org for all the information, and then also to submit your comments there as well. We are wrapping these things up. We basically reviewing it all, and our next meeting will be October 9th or 18th. No, I'm sorry, November 18th. So at 5 o'clock on Zoom. So if everyone would like to tune into that, it'll be a stimulating conversation in regards to GSP writing. So thank you.
And I think that the comment period was just closing on that for the Fillmore Pyro. So
Yes.
And just before moving on, just a little context, overall context for everyone. The GSPs have to be submitted by in January 2022. So all of the draft, all the GSPs are been out for public comment recently. I know that a number of the GSAs plan to respond to comments in November and probably adopt in December and January. So just overall, that's what's happening. And I know a consistent theme that for a lot of the comments has been an interest and request for more studies and desire for more studies and modeling, monitoring, surveys for particular species, things like that. And because of the deadline, these initial plans are moving forward. In a lot of cases, they'll be moving forward, but it sounds like there's going to be continued work, and that will be something, hopefully we'll have an updates on moving forward after they're adopted too. So
Well,
it's iterative, it's not over once they're adopted, that's for sure.
that's a great point. If everyone remembers, this is just a initial start. This will be a living document that will be continuing to be updated every 5 years, and more projects will be coming through. So it's just a starting point. So thank you. Okay, Brian.
Brian, and I speak also Connor Everett is a board member of Mound. Either of you want to share an update?
I'll defer to Brian.
Okay, can you hear me? Good morning.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Brian Bondi. I'm here today on behalf of Mound Basin GSA, and yes, everything that was just said applies to us in terms of the schedule. We have completed our public comment period back in August, and we've been working on responding to comments and updating the document, and we are scheduling the public hearing for adoption on November 18. So if you haven't looked at the GSP yet, please do. And obviously the public hearing is intended to get input. And if we get significant new input, we still have time to consider that input and before adopting. So it's not over, and there's still time to provide input, and we welcome it. So I'll put my email in the chat in case you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, anyone other? Fillmore, Fox Canyon, or Kiramu? Nope. Laura, you're on mute.
I was just looking through the list of our participants. I don't know if anyone wants to speak for Fox Canyon here, or EG wants to share anything.
I know they had a meeting yesterday. All right, well then we will move on to the committee member updates and announcements. If we can, raise your hand on your Zoom, and we'll call you out. Anyone updates? Seeing none. All right, moving on to Lower Watershed 2020 Urban Water Management Plans and Water Shortage Contingency Plan.
Okay, Laura, do you want me to go ahead? Oh, you're on mute.
Yes, please. And
Okay.
we're going to talk some about urban water management plans, water shortage contingency plans, and then if anyone wants to share additional information about drought impacts to their service area, or that on projects they're working on, that kind of thing. That's something that's what we're here to talk about today. So feel free to chime in after we go through these as well.
Okay, did my screen share correctly?
Yes.
Okay, the hard part's over. So good morning. My name is Betsy Cooper. I'm the Assistant General Manager of Ventura Water. And for my presentation, I'm going to start off by providing a background on the purpose of an urban water management plan and the purpose and components of a water shortage contingency plan. And then I'm going to provide an overview of the City of Ventura's water supplies and how we utilize our water shortage contingency plan in determining if a drought stage is triggered. So as an overview, the Urban Water Management Planning Act became part of the California Water Code in 1983. And the act requires every urban water supplier serving more than 3,000 customers to prepare an urban water management plan every 5 years. So the 2020 urban water management plans were required to be submitted to the state by June 30th of this year. So I'd like to mention that Kennedy Jenks Consultants prepared the city's 2020 urban water management plan. The urban water management plans support long-term water resource planning to ensure supplies are available to meet existing and future needs. And the California Water Code requires that every urban water supplier prepare and adopt a water shortage contingency plan as part of its urban water management plan. And Kennedy Jenks also prepared the urban or the water shortage contingency plan on behalf of the city. So water shortage contingency plan, the purpose is to define procedures to be used when water supply can't meet demands. And this could include a drought. It also could include water shortages that may be caused by events like earthquakes or water system failures. The components include an annual supply and demand assessment, stages of action, communication protocols, enforcement, and an action plan. So each year, the City of Ventura staff prepares a comprehensive water resources report, and that report provides the annual supply and demand assessment to determine if a stage of action is triggered. So the city's existing water supplies. So the city has 6 local supply sources, 2 surface water sources, Ventura River and Lake Casitas. And we pump water from 3 different groundwater basins, the Mound Basin, the Santa Paula Basin, and Oxnard Plain Basin. And we also produce recycled water at our wastewater treatment plant, which doesn't meet drinking water standards, but can be used for landscape irrigation. And we do use it to irrigate our 2 city golf courses, Marina Park, and nearby irrigation. So in estimating supply, we look at each supply source and how the drought and any new regulations or maybe facility limitations may impact production in a given year. So this chart shows our supply for each source. The blue bar indicates our supply capacity, or what our supply would be if there's no restrictions on our allocations or pumping capacity. And the orange bar indicates what we were projecting as our available supply from each source for the year 2021 when we prepared our annual comprehensive water resources report, which was at the beginning of 2021. So you might look at this and think that having 5 different potable sources is a good thing. And of course it is, but each of our sources is dependent on the climatic conditions of our area. And this drought has shown vulnerabilities of the local sources and the need to diversify. So for Lake Casitas, the lake continues to decline. At present time, Casitas remains in stage 3, which requires the city to reduce our allowed allocations by 30% in the Casitas service area. So the orange bar shows a 30% decrease in our available allocations. For Ventura River, the amount of water we can pump from the river is tied to how much flow is in the river. Since we've had very little rainfall this year, we anticipated very limited supply from this source, and that has been the case this year. And for our groundwater basins, both obviously the groundwater sustainability plans and operational limitations impact how much water we can pump from the basin. For the Oxnard Plain Basin, this basin is, as you probably all know in this room, considered in critical overdraft. And although this graph shows this to be the source, our source with the highest allocation this year, the groundwater sustainability plan for that basin does suggest a linear ramp down from the current pumping, which would potentially decrease our allocation by 50% in the year 2040. So supply from this basin looks good this year, but not so good in the long term. So that was this year's supply outlook. And if you add all the amounts from the orange bars, the total supply projection in 2021 was a little over 16,000 acre feet. So now looking at demands, this slide shows water use for the last 10 years. The first component we use in estimating near-term demands is to determine a baseline demand. So the past few years, we have used the average of the last 10 years in estimating baseline demands. And that average is shown as the black line on this graph. Our new criteria is to use the average of the last 5 years, which is shown in the orange line. And as you can see, this results in a lower baseline demand estimate. The 5-year average is consistent with assumptions in a rate study that we recently prepared and reflects our customer conservation efforts, which have resulted in behavioral changes that we believe are now the new normal. So our demand methodology. So in addition to baseline demands, there's actually 2 other components that we use in estimating near-term demands. One is estimating demands from approved development projects that are not yet connected to the system, but we anticipate being connected during the calendar year. And the other is applying an adjustment factor based on climatic conditions. So there is a correlation between water use and rainfall. If the less it rains, the more customers use water for irrigation needs. And so the approved criteria is based on what rainfall receive in March of 15th. So we do apply a 5% increase in demands if on March 15th, rainfall is less than 75% normal, and a 10% increase in demands if rainfall on March 15th is less than 50% of a normal. So this slide shows our water shortage stage triggers. So there are 6 stages as shown in the first column. The center column shows criteria for triggering a water shortage stage, which is a comparison of the annual supply projection and demands. And the right column shows the demand reduction goal if a stage is triggered. So if the annual supply projection is between 0 and 10% below the demand projection, a stage 1 is triggered, and we would be requesting customers to voluntarily reduce by 10%. And if annual supply projection is greater or equal to 10%, less than 20 below demand projections, then we would then a stage 2 would be triggered, and there would be a 10% mandatory reduction in water use, and so on. So basically, what does this mean to our customers? Water rates, including a water shortage, include a water shortage surcharge that's added to customers' bills if stage 2 through 6 are declared. So the amount of the surcharge increases with each progressive stage. So the surcharge not only incentivizes water reductions, but there's also a component of it to help pay for heightened water conservation outreach that would be necessary. Okay, so this shows our water shortage stage calculations that we performed earlier in the year. So we projected available supply to be 16,345 acre feet. For demand, taking into account new development projects and a climatic adjustment factor, we projected 15,631 acre feet. So the result was the water shortage stage was not triggered because demand projections was less than supply projections. And the stage 2 declaration that had been in place was rescinded. So rescinding a stage 2 declaration seems obviously counterintuitive since we had very little rainfall. So basically what changed? And the answer is two main changes to our methodology. One is in accordance with new state requirements, we changed how triggers are calculated. Previously, the trigger was based on this comparison of supply to a normal year supply, and that was changed to a comparison of supply to demand. And the second was changing our baseline demand from 10-year historical average to 5-year to reflect the current usage trends resulting from conservation efforts that again, we consider to be the new normal. So although we rescinded a stage 2 drought declaration this year, our local supplies do continue to be impacted by the drought, of course, as well as environmental and regulatory, operational, and legal constraints. Okay, so this slide shows a comparison, just kind of a short-term look of supply versus demands in the next 3 years. And the blue bar represents projected demand. The orange line represents our available supply, assuming continued drought conditions. So the figure shows that available supplies exceed demands, which is good, but the gap continues to be tight, and continued conservation efforts are important to provide stable and reliable water system to our water supply to our community. And this slide also conveys the importance of conservation. This shows our historic water consumption for the last 10 years, and our available supply projected this year was a little over 16,000 acre feet. So you can see that if water usage trends from 2011 to 2014 had continued, here's the 16,000 acre foot line, we would have had to implement a stage. But Ventura customers, as you can see, these last years were hovering around 14,000 acre feet per year, have responded extraordinarily to the call for conservation over the previous years, and rescinding the stage is reflective of that. So continued conservation, residents will continue to be encouraged to maintain similar levels of conservation, and the city will continue to enforce water waste prohibitions and offer water efficiency programs and incentives. So this slide does show some of the programs and rebates that are available to customers to help conserve water. More information is available on our website on all these programs. Another project we are implementing that's helping to save water is the advanced metering infrastructure project. This project, I'm happy to say, is almost complete. We've replaced over 97% of our 32,000 meters in our city of the manually read meters, and we've replaced them with smart meters. So these new meters allow leaks to be detected and repaired quicker. And both the shift to monthly billing, which we took effect in July, and our customers' ability now to monitor water usage online will allow customers to better adjust their water use habits. And the city is pursuing 2 water supply projects to help diversify our water supply portfolio. The Ventura Water Pure Project, which is a potable reuse project, and the State Water Interconnection Project. The Ventura Water Pure Project will provide a stable, drought resilient water supply source, and the State Water Interconnection Project will provide a supply source that's not reliant on our climatic conditions of our area. And it is a project we've been investing in since 1971, so we do want to make use of that investment. Now, our 2020 Urban Water Management Plan includes a comparison of supply and demands in 5-year increments to the year 2045. And without going into detail in that report, the basic conclusion from our projections is that the difference between supplies and demands in drought years is minimal and indicates the need to implement these planned supply projects. So that concludes my presentation, and I don't know if you want any questions now, or if you want to wait for the other two presenters to entertain questions.
I don't see any questions in the chat. Are there any questions right now? Ventura? No,
I have a quick question, if you don't mind. I believe there are introduced eucalyptus that are increasing the fire hazard and draining a lot of water from our floodplain. And I just ask that the county please consider removal and replacement with natives of all the introduced eucalyptus in order to reduce the fire hazard and in order to conserve water more effectively. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. So, there's one question actually, Betsy, while Zach gets prepared to share maybe his screen, and the questions asked about if you can provide an update on the State Water Interconnection Project, particularly about funding for it.
Well, we have a design consultant on board, and that it's Stantec Consultants that we have. That was approved by our city council in May of 2020. We just underwent a cost of service study, and that project was included in the cities. As far as funding, the project, there's a component of Cayugas, and then there's a cost share that's been proposed between Casitas and the city of Ventura for a portion of the pipeline also. So about a third of the pipeline is proposed to be the responsibility of Cayugas, and the other 2/3 cost sharing between the city of Ventura and Casitas. And of course, we're going to go after any grants we can get for the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is Zach ready? Go right ahead, Zach. Thank you. You are on mute or we can't hear you.
You can also, if you're having trouble connecting audio, Zach, you can call in or reconnect. And we still can't hear you. So we watch him scramble to find a phone.
Don't worry, this always happens to someone.
I think.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we're good. Thanks. All right, let me share my screen here. All right, everybody can hear me. Everybody can see. All right. Thank you. Thank you all for your patience. Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Zach Hansen. I'm staff in the Water Resources Department here at United Water Conservation District. And today, similar to Betsy, I'll be presenting on our 2020 Urban Water Management Plan, as well as the Water Shortage Contingency Plan for the OH pipeline. And I'll provide some, well, here first, this view shows kind of through that transparent area, those are our El Rio spreading grounds, recharge basins, and then the El Rio facility is just down over here in the distance, and that's where the sole supply of the OH pipeline are our groundwater wells in this area of the forebay portion of Oxnard Basin that pumps water up and out to users that are typically are closer to the coast. And we'll go into some of that background, as well as the urban water management plan overview, water storage contingency plan overview, and some of the response during this recent and ongoing drought. And then Laura and others also asked to provide perhaps like an overview on regional water supply projects that, as Betsy kind of touched upon with Fox Canyon GMA's GSP and the linear ramp down that each of us within the Oxnard Basin had to project forward with, try to show how those regional water supply projects might be able to help us increase that sustainable yield and water use in the basin. So just some background here, being that United, as you see in the yellow boundary is United's district boundaries. That orange area down south is the OH system service area, and El Rio is just north of that. Are you guys see my cursor at all? Maybe not. Okay, so El Rio is right here, just north of that, away from the coast. And so the groundwater is pumped out of this, what's called the forebay area of the Oxnard groundwater basin. And then we distribute it closer to the coast where users are located. Just this reduces all the pumping away from the coast, or reduces some of the pumping away from the coast. And so United's mission is really to manage, protect, conserve, and enhance the water supply sources within our district. And the Santa Clara River is central to that mission, being that it's the lifeblood of the county. Sespe flows out of the mountains. Santa Clara River flows down, and we're able to capture some of those flows off of the Freeman diversion located north of the El Rio, and then distribute it downstream for conjunctive use through the El Rio recharge basins as well as pipelines. And I'll kind of go into some more of those details here. So here's a zoom in of that same map that shows the OH pipeline system, the forebay being to the north here, and then the Freeman diversion, which diverts water off, and we're able to distribute it to recharge basins in the Saticoy area, recharge basins in the El Rio area, as well as pipelines in the PTP and the PV area here. And so what we're able to do, well, the OH system was constructed back in the 1950s, recognizing that seawater intrusion along the coast was a major problem for the regional water supply, with wells along the coast, dragging, decreasing water levels and allowing for seawater to intrude into the coastline and lose storage and reduce the water quality in the area as well. So the OH system was put in place in the 1950s, and this really helps, support the regional sustainability efforts by reducing that pumping along the coast and putting that pumping up in this unconfined area where we are able to recharge water off of the river and increase water storage, and in turn pump from there and distribute it further to areas that would not be as sustainable. So what the OH system, who they serve, the main user that we serve to is the city of Oxnard, as we see here in the green. And then we also have Port Hueneme Water Agency, which includes both the naval base, Ventura County, as well as Port Hueneme and Channel Islands Beach Community Service District. And then there's a couple other small mutuals that we also provide water to through the OH pipeline. And then some very minor retail users up near the forebay area. And Betsy already covered this a bit, but the urban water management plan, the state legislature first enacted this back in 1983, to get an idea on, state of the water use across the urban landscape. And it really is important for every user that distributes urban water to provide one, and this helps for, it's a requirement for state grants and loans. So that's a big driver also just for our regional planning and collaboration with all regional partners trying to plan for the future in those 20 to 25 year outlooks. So what's different about the OH system compared to the city of Ventura and the city of Oxnard is that we are actually a wholesale supplier as opposed to a retail supplier. So what that means is, rather than having 3,000 or more customers and or 3,000 acre feet distributed, we simply distribute 3,000 or more acre feet. Historically, it's been up to 14,000 or so. That's our current allocation. But so we distribute that large amount of water, again, out of the single supply of the OH well field here in El Rio, and we distribute that water to our retail customer, well, our wholesale customers that in turn retail that out to their customers. So ours is a little more simplified in that we don't have the same type of rights for water conservation requirements or mandates, but we help our wholesale customers in meeting their goals through outreach and other activities with them. So again, this current 2020 update represents the last update was representing 2015 data. We're taking that forward from 2016 to 2020 and moving from 2020 forward, projecting required through 2020 and optionally through 2045. So moving forward, I wanted to highlight here two of the key planning components that were necessary in the most recent in the 2020 updates, being that, you know, with Sigma passing in 2014 and 2015, not all GSPs being realized, everything just starting at that point. Context is a bit different with the GSPs in play. But before that, the water shortage contingency plan, which was previously included in the 2015 and prior urban water management plans, now was required to be adopted and submitted separately. There's still a section within the urban water management plan that summarizes the water shortage contingency plan, but this allows a lot more flexibility. Seeing that the recent and ongoing drought, people have to have that flexibility to adapt to the conditions. You're able to now just revisit your water shortage contingency plan outside of your urban water management plan and address and revise that as needed on its own. And then importantly for our urban water management plan, currently the 2020, was that it needed to be consistent with the groundwater sustainability plans in the area, which in this case is the Fox Canyon GMA's Oxnard Basin GSP that the OH system falls within. So both of these documents were finalized in June and adopted by our board, and they're available on our website for anybody that's interested to review those at that link below. And I can, after this talk, I guess I'll copy and paste that into the comment section for anybody who's interested. So then, as I said, the projections for water use, they needed to be in 5-year increments moving forward as part of the 2020 urban water management plan. The supply and demand projections needed to again be in line with what Fox Canyon's GMA's groundwater sustainability plan included in their plan. And importantly was in October of 2019, their ordinance to establish the allocation system for the Oxnard and Pleasant Valley groundwater provided information on what each user within the basin, what their allocation would be. That was based on 2005 to 2014 average pumping, average use during, and so that average value over that 10-year period was then determined to be the new base allocation for each user. So the OH system has a set allocation. I'll get into those numbers here, but what I really wanted to emphasize is as a wholesale supplier, solely regulated by Fox Canyon GMA and their plans and GSPs, our supply equals our demand. And that's what you'll see in the next couple slides is as we see that linear ramp down, where the OH system, regardless of allocation, is a robust and drought resilient. We have upper aquifer system and lower aquifer system wells. We're able to supply what is demanded, but we are limited to what is allowed under Fox Canyon GMA's plans. Something I do want to highlight for current improvements to the water supply system is the El Rio iron and manganese treatment plant that is being constructed or about just starting construction for several of our lower aquifer system wells that have higher iron and manganese concentrations. That will allow a lot more resiliency during drought conditions, as the upper aquifer system might decline and water quality might decline with those water levels. We can use more of those lower aquifer systems and treat that and blend that with upper aquifer system to provide water during drought conditions and have water high water quality for the users. We're always ongoing is on an annual to biannual year basis is well replacement program within the El Rio wells, as well as metering across the OH system is always an ongoing process. So with that, so now we'll get into what Betsy was kind of highlighting as this is just one of their, City of Ventura and City of Oxnard have various supply sources. We are a wholesaler that has one supply source as the groundwater from the Oxnard Basin. And so we're solely, regulated by what the Fox-Can GMA, what the allocations are. And as we've discussed, they're currently in the GSPs that were submitted to the state in 2019, 2020. They were projecting for a linear ramp down. So we see this currently October 2021 water year 2022, we're projecting in the urban water management plan our base allocation and then a linear ramp down of that nearly 50% to the end of water year 2040, where sustainability is anticipated to be met. And then we are holding that constant until through 2045 to project out. And so what we see here is that the OH system will meet this demand with or without the allocation. Without the allocation or with the allocation, linear ramp down, it's a bit easier to meet that demand. And because of this, the OH users will have to adjust to their, supply sources, being that we're projecting that we're not going to be able to supply as much as we previously had. And we were able, in the urban water management plan, you had to provide a water service reliability assessment under normal years, single dry year, and 5 consecutive dry years. But as I mentioned earlier, this is a pretty robust system. I mean, there is groundwater in the system. We need to manage it sustainably, but we're projecting under all conditions that we'll be able to meet the demand. However, and I'm going to get to this a bit more detail with the projects, but in the urban water management plan, we needed to be consistent with the GSPs. And so that's where our projections follow this black line here. However, throughout the urban water management plan, we were able to describe all the projects in the region that might be able to add to, and our plan to be able to add to the sustainable yield within the Oxnard Basin to, tamper that ramp down or remove that ramp down altogether in the future. So we're not exactly sure what that looks like at the moment. At the moment, the direction from Fox-Can GMA is through their GSP and our current allocation. And so we're following this black line, but there are a number of projects and approaches to increase that sustainable yield, which would improve water quality through, as I mentioned, the El Rio iron and manganese. I'll also touch upon this in just a couple slides, but coastal brackish water that we're United and the Navy are currently planning and developing plans for implementation for, as well as various water supply projects such as the Freeman expansion, again, the coastal brackish, recycled water from various partners such as Oxnard and Camarosa and Camarillo on the Oxnard and Pleasant Valley Plain. And then Betsy touched upon that state water project interconnection that might be able to also add some recharge benefit through flushing of the system or purchases and exchanges in the future. So I'll get into those details, but the main point of this slide is we did have to include this black line in our projections for the urban water management plan for the OH system. However, we're strongly believe, and we stated this throughout the urban water management plan, that projects are coming in the future. We're going to build our way out of this and get that ramped down, tampered down to or removed. Some of the notable actions that we wanted to mention just related to the recent and ongoing drought were, at the beginning of the drought in 2014, United passed Resolution 2014-1, which declared the existence of the drought conditions. But really, we want to just emphasize here that in the Forebay area, we, during this resolution, really clarified that operations by United moving forward, once we get that surface water for available surface water, when it is available, we would really emphasize improving the water quality within the Forebay area through recharging at the Saticoy and El Rio. That's in context of we do need to provide water to like the PV and the PTP well service areas through conjunctive use pipelines, but we really were, with the falling water levels and increasing nitrates in the Forebay area, we needed to, when we did have surface water, get as much surface water there as possible to improve that water quality. And that helps the OH users as well as all the other mutuals that have their own supply wells there in the Forebay area. We've also, throughout the recent and ongoing drought, been working with various partners throughout the region to bring in as much water as we can to improve those conditions. And that includes the Fox Canyon GMA, which worked with us in 2019 for that large 15,000 acre feet of Article 21 water, as well as Santa Clarita Valley Water, Casitas, and the city of Ventura, which we worked with for exchanges and transfers to bring in additional water when it's available. Lastly, related to the water shortage contingency plan, similar to what Ventura has, it was regulated by the state to now have a 6-level water shortage contingency plan map. And ours really mostly falls in line with, as a wholesaler tapping only into groundwater in the Oxnard Basin, we're regulated by Fox Canyon GMA. So as conditions change and Fox Canyon GMA changes the allocations, we're going to have to respond to that and then work accordingly with Fox Canyon GMA and the OH users. Currently, though, there's no current reduction from our allocation prescribed in 2019, that 14,000 plus acre feet. And currently there's no shortage level activated for the OH system. And so that kind of concludes our urban water management plan and water shortage contingency plan discussion. But as I mentioned, we wanted to briefly overview some of the various projects that are currently being implemented, as well as currently being planned for, that could be presented here to illustrate how we might be able to work our, increase that sustainable yield in the Oxnard Basin and help meet the water needs in the region. But first, this is a slide John Lindquist at United here has presented in the last month, I think twice now at a committee meeting and then at our Water Sustainability Summit recently. But what this shows here is just, this is showing total water use by agricultural users in the green and M&I users in the pink from 1985 to 2020. This is total water use. This is data that was from Fox Canyon GMA's GSPs and most recently their update. And what we see here is, we have this drop in water use, total water use during the 1990s, which was actually the wettest decade on record. But really what we want to emphasize here is from 2008 to 2020, the last 12 plus years, both ag users and M&I users have substantially decreased water use and increased their efficiency. And we see that with these general trends. And that's even getting down to levels that were during the wettest period on record. So it's really a kudos to both M&I and ag users here that water use has been, conservation efforts have been very successful. Efficiencies have increased and people are doing a really great job across the Oxnard Pleasant Valley basins here. And this just really highlights that we're already working towards this, sustainability even before SGMA was passed. And here is the last slide. It really just, we want to, John Lindquist actually just presented on this at our Water Sustainability Summit and maybe at a recent committee too, but it's such a helpful slide to hopefully walk through and show people how, where we are in the GSP, response to, Fox Canyon's planning, and how we might be able to increase that sustainable yield to help meet water needs. So what this base map is showing here first is the area. So we have the Oxnard Basin here and Pleasant Valley Basin over here. And what we see with all those dots are the water users. So those are various, that's all the wells that are pumping groundwater out of the basins for use via, both for agricultural or M&I uses. And what we have here is the blue line shows the Oxnard, the OH pipeline. So that's pumping El Rio from the El Rio wells here, distributing it down into the, throughout the more coastal environment and providing that to users throughout. And then we also have what's called the PTP system, which is also its conjunctive use. So we get surface water off of the Santa Clara River when available. We're able to distribute it through this pipeline and provide it to users. There's also a number of groundwater wells there that when surface water isn't available, we're pumping from those and distributing it. And then the surface water is also able to be distributed to the PV system here. And that's helpful to use in a conjunctive manner as well to reduce the groundwater pumping when surface water is available. So what we see here, first of all, is in the GSP, we have from Fox Canyon, we have about 51,000 acre feet being able to be used in the Oxnard Basin and Pleasant Valley Basins. That's sustainable. However, in the same area, we have about 90,000 acre feet a year that of use that's required. And trying to make up that gap, we're trying to fill that bucket up. So where we are today, right now, is we have a number of projects related to bringing in additional state water project, expanding the Freeman diversion to allow United to take those higher flow period peaks off and distribute it into the conjunctive use projects that we have, as well as recycled water from, we have the AWPF from Oxnard, and we have Camarosa's going to be increasing recycled water. And AWPF, our understanding is that should be coming on pretty soon with, I think in February 2020, they're anticipating to have that Hueneme pipeline fully connected up to provide and offset groundwater pumping in the PV area and provide recycled water as a source of water that agricultural users can use to offset their pumping, which helps increase that sustainable yield in the basin. So that's where we are right now. It's already from 2017 forward. These are projects that have been been in place and being implemented, and those will be fully realized in the near future. In addition, we have coastal brackish water, which is an extraction. We have that seawater intrusion that was occurring 100 years ago. And we see those lines of seawater intrusion here with those red dots, where United and the Navy are working together to implement a brackish treatment plant that would extract that degraded water, groundwater, treat it, and essentially remediate that seawater intrusion and bring that front back towards the coast. But then that also becomes a water source to be able to provide to users throughout the basin. And when you do that, we also anticipate a sustainable yield increase by basically holding that seawater intrusion front closer to the coast. We'll be able to increase sustainable yield within the basins by 10,000 acre feet. Similarly, by optimizing through essentially trying to bring as much pumping away from the coast, and distributing it accordingly, we're anticipating to be able to increase sustainable yield within the two basins by 2,000 to 7,000 acre feet a year. So that helps make up that to the 40,000 acre feet difference, hopefully in the next decade or so. These are ongoing projects that take time to implement, but they're either in implementation at the moment or in planning and development for implementation. I believe that I think that's it. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer now or later after the next speaker.
Hello.
Is there, Richard Sweet? Go ahead.
Okay, this is my first time using Zoom, so I hope it works. Hello, Zach. I'm a Ventura water customer, and I used to follow the Santa Clara River Watershed Committee meetings, but I haven't been around in a few years. So I have a sense of United Water's history and Ventura's history and Santa Clara River's history. To me, it doesn't seem like you can count on any additional Santa Clara River water at the Freeman diversion. And I don't see how you can possibly say that you can achieve that 40,000 acre feet deficit. So from a historical point of view, for me, I think that United Water is being overly optimistic, and I don't see how you can say that that's a realistic urban water management plan. That's all. Thanks.
Thank
you,
you for
Richard.
your feedback.
Yeah, I will clarify those projects, we didn't include them yet technically in the urban water management plan. Those were, as I showed, we were following the Oxnard GSP to fully reduce following their allocation reduction. So just to clarify, the urban water management plan did follow the linear ramp down, which is consistent with Oxnard's GSP. However, we will, I feel like United and a lot of regional partners are working very hard and well together to try to realize that 40,000 acre feet difference. And we appreciate the feedback.
Zach, could you go back to the, I think maybe it was the last one about the making up? I think that's just really such a helpful visual. I think kind
This
of,
one?
yeah, if I could, before, I know Kat has her hand up and then Lynn, but in terms of Santa Clara River, I think maybe what Richard's also alluding to is or speaking about is the climate change expectations, water availability, climatic, with the Santa Clara River. I mean, you also were talking about Title 21 water, and I mean, could you speak some about the expectations of Santa Clara River providing water for recharge in the future? That's a big question, but
right. I think the main, so that was Article 21 water with that's when that's a state water project purchase essentially, or from my understanding. And honestly, Brom, Serku, and Murray, our hydrologists here, they could speak a lot more to a lot of those interactions. My understanding for the Freeman expansion is that, and understanding of climate change is that, surface water flows, we're going to have significant surface water flows still. They're just going to be coming at, much greater peaks, more intensity, higher intensity storms that result in higher intensity flows. And that's exactly what the Freeman expansion is trying to adapt to, is by drawing water off of the Santa Clara River when we have those extreme peak flows, and being able to capture more of those high peak flows where, species aren't migrating upstream during those high peak flows. We're able to capture that very muddy water and use that for recharge when that's available. So we are planning for surface water flows to still flow. We're just planning for those to be greater intensities and being able to capture those higher peaks that are suboptimal for other users.
See, maybe Kat had a question.
Yeah, hi, good morning. Hi, Zach. I'm with the Nature Conservancy. I just had a quick question about the coastal brackish project. Can you give us like broad stroke details on what that entails?
Yeah, so here we see in, well, different layers have different amount of intrusion, but we see these reddish lines, those are our understanding of where the seawater intrusion front, that's like where the high chloride, basically from the coastline. If you can see my cursor to the red line, that's high chloride concentrations from seawater intruding into the coast. The idea with the coastal brackish extraction and treatment project would be to place several wells within the Point Magoo area where we have that outcrop. And so these outcrops are, conduits for seawater to get into the aquifers very quickly, both here and at Point Wainimi. We have these canyon outcrops. And what the plan is to essentially pump that out, hold that seawater intrusion at some location nearer to the coast, draw that seawater, that brackish water back. And then from then on, you have, fresh water and seawater kind of mixing, creating brackish water in these areas. And that's becoming a water source to be cleaning up and to be utilizing within the basin. Does that help explain kind of broad stroke implementation?
Yeah, and have you identified the location of those wells, I guess they are, that are going to be along the coast?
Those are in implementation. I know we're working with DDW and with other regulators. I can't speak too much to that myself, but yeah, we haven't, I know we haven't like formalized exact well locations, but we're in the numerical modeling phase of that to try to be, cite those and find optimal locations, considering all effects.
I ask because we're currently doing some data gap monitoring for our Ormond Beach and Restoration Public Access Plan down in that section of the coast near Naval Base, Ventura County. So I'm just curious how that might change some of the results of, because we're trying to better understand the hydrology there so that we can plan for the restoration of really specific kind of habitat niches. So that's interesting to hear. I'm not sure if it would change the dynamics because we're still in the early stages, but I'm curious to learn more about that project. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I will. I know the wells are being targeted in like the Magoo and Oxnard. Your interactions would be more, surficial with the, above the perched zone and surface water conditions, or am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, but I do believe we also have some groundwater. I mean, they're all shallow wells for sure. But yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for the information.
May I ask a question, please?
I think Lynn had her hand raised.
Oh, go ahead.
There.
Excuse me. Well, I basically just wanted to thank the three presenters. I know we still have one to go, but I think this information is really, really interesting. The level of detail that you guys are providing on your urban water management plans is, I think, really valuable for this group and, really other groups to see essentially the complexity of it all, but also the detail to which you need to go based on the state's requirements for urban water management plans and for the water storage contingency plans. And all this information is, I think, going to help us inform, as we move forward with some future project ideas. And you're hearing from folks on this call that there might be some concerns about some of these projects, or, you're trying to balance environmental issues with water supply needs. And I just really want to thank you for bringing this level of discussion to the group, and that, probably we need to maybe do this more often, is to feature the work that you guys are doing through your, and this is a 5-year plan. So, we don't have these conversations very often when you update your plans, but I think it's really valuable. And some of the things that you're talking about in your presentation, Zach, actually have come up in recent meetings that I've been in. mutual water companies in El Rio and Island Acres have a lot of concerns and questions, and some of your, particularly this slide here, I think would have, will address some of those questions. So it just shows the importance of us all kind of trying to integrate our conversations and talk through these issues for better outcomes. So just wanted to thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you. I also wanted to thank the consultants for their efforts. I understand it's a big challenge allocating the water that is available, and given the fact that we seem to have less and less water available, I just wanted to ask, can you please stop taking so much water out of the Santa Clara River? United Water is already destabilizing the Santa Clara River from the 118 bridge to Victoria Bridge or below, as well as further endangering multiple federally listed endangered species. It only flows when there are peak flows that United Water is currently letting flow. And the improvements that you're suggesting are likely to decrease carbon sequestration in the floodplain forest and increase fire dangers to East Ventura homes related to river floodplain wildfire. If United Water increases its diversion of high peak flows, it will further disrupt the sediment transport in the Santa Clara River and makes it more likely that the county will adopt severe approaches like those you can see on the LA River to the south of us. And the unattractive and property value degrading Army Corps of Engineers plans for River Park Levee are just the beginning. Can you please evaluate the feasibility of converting the Mandalay electricity generation plant to desalination with pumping of desalinized water up the Santa Clara River to provide beneficial use flows for wildlife and habitat if you cannot replace and recharge the water that you are diverting? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, George. Lynn, do you have your hand raised?
No, sorry, I just forgot to take it down.
Okay, we're trying to get us on track. We have next, if that's it for United, Zach, thank you, and all your crew for that as well. And Betsy, next would be Oxnard's Water Division.
Hi, everybody. My name is Megan Schneider. I'm the Water Conservation and Outreach Supervisor here for the City of Oxnard. Unfortunately, our Water Resources Manager couldn't attend today, but we did invite our consultant, Water Systems Consulting Inc., Spencer Waterman, to give a little presentation on our urban water management plan. At the end, we could answer any questions, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions in regards to conservation projects here in the City of Oxnard. Oh, you're on mute, Spencer.
Sorry about that. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great. And is my screen showing up for everybody? Good. Right on. Thanks. Thanks, Megan. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here today. Betsy and Zach did a great overview of the UWMP and the water shortage contingency plan requirements. So in my presentation, I'll focus on the city's water sources, their water shortage contingency plan, which I'll shorten to WSCP because that's a mouthful. And then also talk a little bit about the city's latest actions based on current drought conditions. All right, so to meet potable and recycled water demands, the city relies on three sources, really: local groundwater, imported water, and recycled water. And local groundwater comes from the Oxnard Plain Groundwater Basin and also from United Water Conservation District. Imported water comes from Callegas Municipal Water District. Over the past 5 years, the city supplies have consisted of about 40% Callegas water, and the remaining 60% generally is split equally between city groundwater and water from United. And as Zach mentioned earlier, Fox Canyon's groundwater allocation ramp down will have a big impact on future groundwater supplies. So that has really kind of set a path for the city to invest in their recyclable water projects. So currently their recycled water comes from the city's Advanced Water Purification Facility, or AWPF. And currently that water is used for agricultural, industrial, and other irrigation applications. However, in the future, there are plans to expand the recycled water program to include groundwater recharge and indirect potable reuse. That's also known as Aquifer Storage and Recovery, or ASR for short. And ASR involves injecting highly treated recycled water into the groundwater basin and then allowing it to recharge in the basin and meet water quality regulations. And then it can be eventually pumped from the groundwater basin as potable water. Currently, a demonstration well is being constructed and is expected to be completed within the year. And after that, I'm sorry, not within the year, within a year. And after that, testing will begin. Then if all goes well, the city could potentially be using more recycled water by 2024 or 2025. The city expects to recover approximately about 1,500 acre feet per year of potable water from recharged recycled water by the year 2025, and hopes to increase that up to nearly 9,100 acre feet per year by the year 2045. The water supplies I mentioned in the previous slide are expected to provide volumes of water shown in this chart here through the year 2045 in order to meet projected normal year demands. The city plans to offset the groundwater ramp down mentioned earlier by utilizing more recycled water. The supply portfolio by 2045 is expected to remain at about 30% of the total supply for coming from city's groundwater. And that 30% assumes that the city will implement its ASR program, and it will also sell recycled water to agricultural users in exchange for groundwater pumping allocations. The other portion of the portfolio coming from United is expected to reduce from 31% down to about 18%. And Callegas would reduce from about 41% to 21% of total water supply. The reliability and drought risk assessment portion of the UWMP analyzes the city's capability to meet demands in dry years. And the demands tend to fluctuate in response to local rainfall conditions. There are a lot of other factors, of course, but we used historic rainfall as a way to determine normal and dry year demand patterns. And this chart here shows the percentage change in demand for each dry year compared to a normal year. And it corresponds to anticipated demand changes during a drought cycle that we've seen historically. For example, as shown in the chart here on this slide, if a 5-year drought were to start its first dry year in 2025, demands would be expected to increase, particularly from outdoor demands. Then as the drought continues through multiple years, it's anticipated that demands will reduce through the second and the third years. And then eventually they will be expected to slightly rebound in the fourth and the fifth years. And these demand changes are typically a result of conservation measures implementation, as well as usage behavior changes due to social awareness of the drought. Dry year demands really need to be met with a dynamic approach with a supply portfolio that considers supply constraints at the given time. So therefore, the projected supplies were estimated for dry year scenarios, considering a variety of factors for each supply source. And while supply constraints vary by source, the city can adaptively manage its water supply portfolio and encourage conservation to meet demands in normal and dry years. While the city does expect to meet long-term demands while continuing to promote conservation, there is a potential for shorter-term shortages due to a combination of foreseeable and unforeseeable events, such as an earthquake. So if there were to be a shortage, the WSCP provides an actionable plan to address it. The WSCP defines the city's annual water supply and demand assessment which outlines how to review the key inputs and evaluation criteria for determining a shortage. And then it also provides the city's overall methodology to determine each year if a shortage will be triggered in the next coming year. So a few of the potential triggers for a shortage that the city may consider are listed here, and they'll be considered together in a combination to determine what the appropriate shortage level would be, summarized in the table on the right. The first required annual assessment is due to the state in July 2022. So this will be done on an annual basis and is a new requirement of the Water Shortage Contingency Plan, which Betsy laid out kind of the process for that for Ventura earlier, and City of Oxnard will be doing that as a requirement as well. For now, Oxnard plans to remain in a stage 2 as it has since the year 2014. And stage 2 actions mainly include mandatory prohibitions on water waste, and it also includes some limitations on irrigation. Stage 2 is currently in line with the governor's and also Metropolitan Water District's call to reduce consumption by 15%. And the city will be following and coordinating closely with Metropolitan and Callegas on upcoming actions from them, which may include the potential for mandatory conservation. This coordination will really focus on regional campaigns and consistent messaging throughout the service area. The city also plans to continue its long-term conservation initiatives. So as I mentioned previously, water use efficiency will continue to be a valuable resource management strategy for the city. The various programs that have been successful for water use efficiency are summarized in the Demand Management Measures, or DMMs for short, chapter of the IRWM, and also in this table. The city anticipates continuing offering customers resources to save water, such as fix a leak class and rebates. And the city is currently evaluating its own watering efficiencies. Currently, this month, the city is implementing a contactless curbside water conservation program. This program offers customers a customized water conservation kit, which includes things like water efficient shower heads and things like that. So far, the city has had over 900 customers register for a kit. So it's a good active customer base. Looking forward, some important forthcoming DMMs include implementation of automated metering infrastructure, or AMI for short. And that really provides customers with up-to-date, readily available water use information. And that can really help out for reducing water losses, identifying leaks, and making a customer aware of how much they are using and if maybe perhaps they're using more than they need. So it's an upcoming DMM. And the city also continues to expand water conservation staff, and they will be focusing on educational outreach and programs for the community. So that's a quick summary of Oxnard's supplies and the WSCP and kind of their status of the drought at this time. So with that, I'll wrap up and turn it back over if there are any questions for me and Megan.
All right, any questions for Spencer? Don't see any hands up. If you want to just unmute, you can ask your question.
I have a question. So looking at you had the slide showing the projected water supply sources time. And so just kind of trying to compare the two with the OH pipeline that Zach just spoke about, and that there's a 50% reduction going from 14,000 to 7,000 acre feet. So the proposal or the idea is to make up for that with recycled water, and the recycled, seeing here in recycled pump back credits. And I don't remember if you explained, I didn't hear that you explain what recycled pump back credits exactly are.
Sure. Yeah, so you're correct. So the trend of groundwater allocation reducing starting from 2020 here, kind of see that trend in the top of the orange bars there. That's being made for with use of recycled water, aquifer storage and recovery. So water that's injected into the groundwater basin and then extracted. And then the recycled water pump back credits are for basically providing recycled water for irrigation to agricultural users in exchange for their groundwater allocation, not pumping in a certain area that's vulnerable, kind of as Zach talked about earlier, towards the seawater intrusion area. It allows shifting of that pumping and gives kind of a trade for Oxnard giving recycled water to agricultural uses and then receiving a groundwater allocation in exchange to pump out of the groundwater basin elsewhere.
So for the agricultural water users, it's that's essentially recycled water. That's going to be, that's like the new water supply is recycled water there. It's just going to the agricultural water users directly, and then Oxnard's using their groundwater credits. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, any other questions? If not, that's the last update in regards to the management plans and contingency plans. I know that the state is in an emergency drought. Wednesday's rain was very helpful for us. The Sierras have lots of snow caps, so hopefully this will mean we have a wetter El Nino time. I don't know, but I'll hope for rain anytime for water for our farmers and our communities and environment, everything.
Yeah.
So thank you. Laura, anything else you'd like to say on this?
On that note, I was wondering if United was able to get any water to the forebay during this last rain event. If anybody wants to, or anyone wants to speak about impacts from our atmospheric river that really did not produce what we had hoped for our area. But
Zach, we cannot hear you. Oh, there you are.
I actually do not know. I can't answer that right now. But we could get back to the group with any increase in flow rates and subsequent diversions might have been.
yeah, well, it was a
Sorry.
nice. It's okay. It was a nice steady rain there for a few hours, so
Yeah.
definitely helps with our.
That's something. Yeah, I should have thought of that question before coming to this. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. We know the rainfall, and you can go online for the county of Ventura. I know we have our data of 0.5 to 1 to in all the regions to see the amount of water, but it's good to let us know what that information is from United as well. All right, and with that, thank you so much, everyone, for your information on that. We'll move it over to Laura and Lynn for the IRWM and watershed coordination updates.
Let's see. Okay, are you, I think this is showing the wrong view, isn't it?
It's not showing anything.
Oh.
I think you have to just select which screen you want to share.
Yeah.
Well, Laura, maybe while you're queuing that up, I'll just start off with just a really quick commentary on the fact that right now we're in a challenging time with the drought, and some of the other issues that we're facing, but we're also in good times as far as funding available for a lot of the projects that we're interested in implementing in our region, especially those that are related to drought relief from the state's budget. And I think we probably brought some of these things up in our last meeting, Laura. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but Laura has some slides about some of the funding from the state budget, which includes funding for small water systems.
And you're
drought
seeing
relief.
you are seeing these slides now, right?
No.
No. Oh. Sorry, my apologies. Okay, keep going and I will.
Okay. So the small communities drought relief funding has already been released, and we have a few slides about that, but there's also very shortly going to be another set of funds that will fund some of the larger agencies, and that's the urban and multi-benefit program, drought relief funding program. And that will be funding projects for, so small communities are defined as less than 3,000 customers or 3,000 acre feet a year. And the urban and multi-benefit project is targeting the larger water districts, 3,000 acre feet or 3,000 customers or connections. So above that level. So the urban water management plans that we saw today, those are all, as some of the slides indicated, for the entities over 3,000 connections or 3,000 acre feet per year of urban water use. The guidelines for that second set of funds, we're still not seeing it, Laura.
Okay.
Do you want to email it to me and I can share it? Or I can try to share it. Maybe we could start with the things that aren't related to the slides that you have for funding. If you wanted to do, if you email that to me and then I can queue it up, you could start your watershed coordinator update.
Let me just try this one more time here. So why, from my end, it says I'm sharing it, but it highlights it, right? So that's not showing anything?
I can't see it.
Weird. I'm sorry, I apologize. I can just do it maybe. This isn't the ideal way, but that kind of works. Does that work? Are you seeing that?
No.
Okay, that's very strange then. Okay, I apologize.
Well, why don't you just go ahead and cover this one because you've got all the slides.
Okay, well, just to share that as Lynn was saying, the emergency drought funding is available. The small community drought relief programs, 200 million, and there's 100 million for urban drought relief program, and then another 200 million for multi-benefit drought relief. This is all DWR grant funding. The final PSP and guidelines for this emergency drought funding, these 3 pots of money, is supposed to be available in November. And for the small community drought relief program, that's really supposed to be emergency, immediate drought relief funding available now. So DWR has actually encouraged anyone interested in applying to go ahead and apply now before the PSP even is out, if they're at risk of running out of water. Also, so some more on that, just it's definitely immediate and temporary measures for water supply, and then immediate near-term and resilient infrastructure projects. Those are the program objectives. So, reliable water sources, water system storage, replacing leaking pipelines, things like that, and also backup power sources for system operation. And then let's see, what else can I say about it? There's some more in slides. I'll send it in the presentation. I'll put a link to it, or I can send it to Lynn. But there's the eligible costs as well that they shared in DWR. And then just applying for it as well. And I wanted to point out, I can maybe put this in the chat. There's a website that was shared at the funding fair that was last week. I don't know if anyone else attended that, but the funding fair shared that DWR has a drought website they've created now that kind of puts all of this funding into one location. And then, so that was mostly all I wanted to share about the funding, the drought related assistance opportunities. Was there anything else, Lynn? And then other than that, kind of update on the DAC program, and then, workshops and meetings and things coming up.
Well, just one note that some of you probably saw the email that I sent out about we are now all considered part of the governor's drought declaration, whereas it had started out being just 50 of the 58 counties. So now all counties are eligible for these funds, whereas previously it was going to be, we'd have to go through some additional hoops to qualify. And I know that created a lot of concern for people that, although today we heard some promising presentations from the three presenters that they aren't in immediate danger of running out of water. So that's good news. But all of particularly the smaller water systems are a little bit more fragile in their supply and a little more subject to the shorter term fluctuations like what we're having right now with this severe drought. And I definitely heard that from some of the mutual water companies in a conversation this week. So there's definitely need in our county for some of particularly the small water systems funding, and now there's access to it since we're all included in the drought declaration. So just wanted to mention that.
Okay. So the DAC program, Lynn and I just wanted to provide a real brief update. The needs assessment report will be available for review in the coming weeks, next few weeks. We can share that out. We'll be sharing it first with our DAC committee. The report will also then, I'll be highlighting some of the results or findings from that report, the needs assessment report, at our January Watershed Committee meeting. That report will include the surveys, the needs assessment survey, findings from the community survey and the institutional surveys. So those are like the water service providers. And on that note too, we still actually are able to collect information from water service providers if there are institutions or water service providers that serve disadvantaged communities that have not yet taken the survey. So there's still an opportunity for that. And then really the DAC, the next steps that we wanted to highlight for the DAC program is really it's about project identification now. So we're looking at, there'll be a request for proposals that will be sent out to the water providers or institutions. And that form is pretty similar to the request for projects form for the IRWM program. The consultants will also be kind of circling back with community members and community organizations based on what we found in the needs assessment survey, the community needs assessment survey, to try to identify now projects and kind of create a project list, proposed project list. We also will be considering tribal needs assessment results and identify projects from that assessment, and then So it's really just kind of funneling all of these sources into a project list. And then the WCBC DAC committee will evaluate all the identified projects in our region based on criteria that was established by the DAC program task force. And from that, then the selected projects will receive technical support, project design support, and site assessment services. And some of those projects then will be funneled or into the IRWM program for our watersheds consideration for Prop 1 Round 2 funding. And some of those projects will be looking at other sources of funding for them as well. So, that's just kind of the flow process. So you can expect that as a watershed group, we will be hearing more about projects that were identified through the DAC program this next year. Are there any questions about that? No.
So maybe I'll just add to what you said, Laura, about so we've got some kind of parallel tracks happening here, a targeted effort to look at specific disadvantaged community areas of the county and what the needs are and what kinds of projects would be useful to address those needs. And then we will also, pretty much over the same time frame, we're going to be collecting project ideas from all of you in our regular process that we do prior to a grant solicitation. So the round 2 grant solicitation for Prop 1 IRWM implementation funding, we're going to be getting the draft PSP for that probably in November. And then that will help us get ready. We always have to sort of gather together in watershed groups and discuss what are the project needs for both the non-DAC funding and the DAC funding. And just as a reminder, in the IRWM grants, there's a 0 match for any disadvantaged community project and a 50% match for projects that are not serving disadvantaged communities. So we will be very busy early in the year or middle of next year getting ready for round 2 for that last round of IRWM grant funding from Prop 1. And at the same time, we'll be teeing up projects for the that will emerge out of this disadvantaged community involvement program that could be either included in round 2 or be submitted for other grant opportunities. So we've got these two sort of parallel things happening. Fortunately, they're kind of on the same time frame because we do want to identify projects for disadvantaged community projects for round 2. And so the timing works out pretty well for both those programs.
Thank you. Also, just some things to keep on your radar upcoming, coming up. Maybe Lynn wants to talk about this, but there's the Roundtable of Regions, the IRWM Roundtable of Regions Climate Summit. And the date's it's over 3 days, right, Lynn, in November?
Yeah.
Okay, and I included that, I think, in a newsletter. You can look back and find that. You're on the email list. Also, there's a FloodMar forum. I thought it'd be interesting to see. I don't know if anyone maybe from this group is planning to attend that. It is a pay event, to pay to attend that, but it's 3 days, November 8th to the 10th. And I know there was a lot of discussion and interest in FloodMar, and that's the managed aquifer recharge. When we had CAMYAR come to a meeting a couple meetings ago. So I wanted to highlight that for this group. We'll be having also kind of a subcommittee or basically task force meeting November 15th. And the next watershed committee meeting will be January 27th. So we won't be meeting again until next year. And I'll also be working with the upper watershed to figure out when a good time is for us to have a joint meeting with the upper watershed to really start talking more about projects and preparation for Prop 1 Round 2 IRWM project solicitation and selecting our projects in the watershed. And I already talked some more about that. And then Just other funding opportunities. I don't know if anyone else wants to share. It'd be good to hear if you and your organization are planning to apply for any or applying right now for any grant funds. There's a lot of funding available. There's the Bureau of Reclamation Water Smarts grant. The funding fair, like I mentioned, was last week. And also I think they held a session this morning. I assume it'll be recorded now that everything's on Zoom. There's also from the Forest Health Grant, there'll be a new solicitation cycle opening in December. And then also the BRIC funding, which is FEMA, the Building Resilient Infrastructure Communities, I think is what the I stands for. And I was told for that, if it's a drought related project, FEMA, typically that hasn't really been a type of project that's been funded under through these FEMA grants, but they are looking to try to fund more drought related projects. So if you have a project that you think might fit that, to try to have a scoping meeting with FEMA early. Anybody want to share any information or updates on projects right now or applications for funding, since there's talking more about that right now? Okay.
So I just added to the chat some websites that are helpful if you want to get just a one-stop look at some of these grants. And then we've probably shared these with you in the past, but the state has a grants website, grants.ca.gov. Great, very comprehensive list of grants. And you can sign up on their listserv for the different types of grants you're interested in and get emails. And then there's the grants.gov, which is the federal version of that with federal funding. And the things that Laura just mentioned should all be on that, the Bureau and the FEMA grants. And then the California Financing Coordinating Committee, which held the funding fair. There was one actually going on. There is one going on right now that's the same time as our meeting. And they have a handbook and they have lots of good information about grants. So if you missed the funding fair, you can download their handbook and you can find that on that website.
Thanks, Lynn.
Lynn, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Richard Sweet. I had a question about whether or not homeless people can be considered as a disadvantaged community for those grants.
Oh, well, we are treating the homeless communities as part of the DACI grant, and they are one of the stakeholder entities that we're planning for. And you heard a little bit of, well, you heard the presentation earlier about Continuum of Care at the county is a participant in that program with us that Laura and I.
No, I missed that.
But for somebody would have to apply on their behalf for, say, the Small Communities Grant Program. That's a good question, whether they can qualify for that for, say, bottled water or, mobile facilities. And so that's an excellent point. And we can look into that and see how that might work for the small communities funding.
Thanks.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay.
All right, so thank you, Laura and Lynn, for the updates. Is there any other information or comments that anyone would like to make before we adjourn? Okay. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. I know we're all going to the next meeting. So happy holidays. Enjoy everything. Stay safe. And we'll keep you updated. If we need to, we'll contact you. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lynn, do you have a minute to stay on? I want to see if I can get this screen share working. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shoot, what is going on here?
Okay.
Okay, let me try this again. So, and just, it was tough because I thought I was sharing my screen also at the beginning of the meeting. Did you see me sharing the agenda at all?
Yes, I think so.
So that worked, because then I wondered, you know, if I don't hear anything, I start to wonder. Okay, so are you seeing this right now?
Nope.
Do you see nothing or black? Or?
I just see, you know, the words Laura Schellenberger, Watershed Coordinator, has started screen sharing, but there's no content.
Huh. Okay. I just wonder if there's something about my like dual monitor setup.
Yeah,
that I haven't, because I unplugged one of my monitors today so that I have my laptop in the monitor instead of two, so I can have the camera and
no, I feel like I think you had the agenda up at the beginning.
yeah, what about now? Okay, I wonder, oops. Well, let me also stop recording.